My name is Rebecca Soto, and I am what some people would call a condenser. There are two kinds of people in the world. There's a condenser, and there's an expander. Here's an example of what a condenser would do. A condenser would be asked the question, do you like Frosted Flakes or do you like Cheerios? And they would answer almost immediately, I like Frosted Flakes. And that's their whole answer. They have nothing left to say. But what an expander would do, an expander would say, I like Frosted Flakes because they are covered in this fantastic sugary powder on each flake. And whenever I take a bite of this wonderful, crunchy, sugary goodness from heaven, I would just be lavished in this wonderful, sugary, fantastic moment in my life. And I get up every morning and I have my Frosted Flakes, and I think that they're great because every day, every moment beyond the morning, I would be thinking about how great these awesome flakes were that I ate this morning. So that's what my husband would do, and then he'd keep going about it for a long time. And I would have to sit there and listen because I'm a good wife. So, the question that I want to ask you today, what is your gut telling you? I think this is a good thing to think about because there's a lot of situations in everybody's life where they have a gut feeling about something and it might not even make sense to you personally. Let me give you an example. When I was in high school, I was dating someone and he had a great family, he had a great college plan, and he had everything put together. And he would have been an awesome husband, but when I was in high school, you don't think about those kind of things. At least most girls don't. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But I didn't think about that. But sometimes that idea would be poked into my brain, what if I did marry this guy? And it's set up perfectly to where you would think that that would be fine. Like, oh, this would be a good match. That'd be great for her. But I had this gut feeling that this is definitely not what I would want for my life. But there was this connection that I had with him, and I didn't want to break his heart. I definitely didn't want to break my heart because no matter what, when you get broke up with, your heart breaks. And so I would come up with a pro and cons list. This is what every strategic person would do. And let me tell you firstly, before I go on with this, you usually go into these with a preconceived idea of what you're going to decide. And I had already decided that I was not going to break up with this guy because I liked him a lot. So I thought. So what would end up happening is my pro side would be about 7 awesome things about this guy, and then my cons list would be about 3. And I'm like, oh, well the pros win. Ha, I get to stay with him forever. Cool beans. But then after that, I would still think, but I don't think this is what I should be doing for my life. I kept feeling like if I married him, I would be living this other person's life, and it wouldn't be something that I had wanted. And so after about 6 times of trying this, we ended up breaking up, and thank you God, because there's better things to come. So, what is your gut telling you right now? If you were to think about something that's going on in your life right now, what is your gut telling you about it? A few years pass after this whole high school situation goes on, and I meet someone else. And we start dating, and we didn't really have a whole lot going on for our lives. We were like just fresh out of high school. And we just started dating for fun, and neither of us were really thinking about anything, or at least I wasn't. He kind of was, but I didn't know that. So, he starts planting little ideas here and there, like, oh, I think you'd make a good candidate for a wife. And I'm like, well, what you talking about? I'm not going to be nobody's wife. I am like 19. And so, we're going through this, and I start thinking, I'm afraid, because so I start thinking about our relationship together, and I start wondering, maybe we are not compatible, because he was really outgoing, and I was kind of mousily quiet around him for the first 6 months. And so I just wasn't sure. I was scared of maybe committing to something that big. And so what I tried to do was I tried to break up with him. And here, this is an interesting story, because whenever I broke up with him, I didn't feel like I had been relieved, like I had a peace about my decision that I had made. I actually felt horrible. I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. I couldn't even hardly have a conversation with anybody, not even my own mom, and we're best friends. And so what ends up happening while this is all happening to me is my ex-boyfriend at this point, because we broke up, he went to his mentor and he said, I really like this girl, but she's trying to break up with me. And the mentor even told him, He's like, if she doesn't want you, just move on. You don't need to waste your time. And even though that was his mentor, he still had a gut feeling that maybe I shouldn't break up with her just yet, or I should continue to pursue her. And so that's what he did. He ended up pursuing me, and I figured I'd just give it one more shot, even though it was scary. And now, like a year and a half later, we're married and living the best life ever. So all because he listened to that gut feeling. If he had listened to what was going on around him, what I was saying, even what his own mentor was saying, that might not have worked, because we might be separated now, and God knows where we'd be now. So that's just an example of a gut feeling. Here's one more. Let me explain to you how shoe companies work, specifically in basketball. A shoe company, they want to try to promote as many athletes as they can. And so what they do typically is they have about 5 people in mind, and they say, go to these 5 people and offer them shoes or jerseys or anything with their logo on it. And so they'll do that with the investment, hoping that that person will end up being a really big star. And so this shoe company decides that they're not going to do that. They had this gut feeling that they need to invest all of the money that would have been divided between 5 different people and put it on one person. Anybody in business would tell you that that's really dumb. Because businessmen, they do this thing where they get logic together, and they understand that certain things, like they have to make financial sense, and you don't need to make huge investments in something that could potentially go horribly wrong. And so sometimes they have to go off of a gut feeling that makes no sense, and maybe people would call you stupid for it. But this is what the shoe company did. They said, get all of this money and put it into this one person. This person had won a national championship in college, but there wasn't really a whole lot of success beyond that point. And so this was probably one of those things that people were like, what are you doing, random shoe company? Why would you do that? That is not smart. But they did it anyway. And they promoted him, and they made him look like the greatest athlete that they could ever imagine. And what ends up happening is he ends up being one of the best athletes ever. Nike did this with Michael Jordan. They had a gut feeling just to give this guy a shot and hope that he turns out. And he's now a legend of basketball. He's almost, some people would even argue that he is the best that there ever was. A lot of people actually would say that. But, so this is all based off of gut feelings. Can you imagine if Nike had never done that? Can you imagine if Nike had never said, let's put all of our money and all of our trust in this one person who hasn't even done anything that great yet? What if they didn't do that? I mean, there are little kids, little tiny people, running around with Jordan shoes on right now. So many of them. And people will spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on these shoes. Shoes. Because it has Jordan's face on it. It has this little, Duncan thing on it. I don't know what the position is, I forgot. But the point is, what if they hadn't done that? And if the gut feeling that you have right now is telling you that you need to do something, and you know, and you're there's just something inside, and it doesn't make any sense reasonably, sometimes it's good to go for those things, because it could literally change history. So it's very important that you listen to that gut feeling. One other story I have. There was a man named Gordon Lindsay, and he and his wife lived pretty well. They had businesses, they had a home, and they had family. But they had this gut feeling like they needed to start a college to help students become the true people that they were meant to be. They had a gut feeling about this. Now, most people would say, why would you sacrifice everything? Because that's what they had to do. They had to sacrifice and sell everything that they owned, and they decided to pour into this idea. Just an idea. There was no physical evidence of it. And they decided to pour into this idea everything that they had. And what ended up happening is when they said yes to this gut feeling that they had, people came out of the woodworks to come and help them. We want to teach at your school. We want to give you this building. We want to give you these dorms. They want to give you everything. All because they believed in this gut feeling. Most people would say, what are you thinking? What are you thinking to build a school and give up everything in your life? Because a lot of people, and especially in America, would think success is what happens to you. Success is what happens to you personally. Do you have a great job that gives you 6 figures or more? Do you have a big house? Do you have 2 or more kids? Do you have fancy cars? Do you have Are you climbing the business ladder? But they gave all of that away to help other people. And I think that that's amazing because sometimes whenever you have that gut feeling, it means sacrifice. It means breaking up with your boyfriend to have a most fantastic husband later, or wife, either way. So what is that gut feeling that's inside you right now? Because it takes bravery, let me tell you. It takes bravery to say, I want to break up with this person that the world is telling me is good for me, that society, America, is telling me is good for me. It takes bravery, but listen, your fears can be crippling and make you not do something. But let me tell you that your bravery has twice the power that your fear has. Twice the power. So the crippling thing that's like completely consuming you and you are totally afraid and you're like, I will never do that. I want to so bad on the inside for some reason, but I will never do that. Your bravery has twice that power. So the same crippling, sometimes fear that comes on you, just 1 second of bravery can make that whole thing go away, and then you'll realize that you have an amazing life because you had 1 second of bravery that outwon your fears.